So far with Paint the Rails, we're on our final station. We're at Clareview Station. And one of the things we wanted to do with this station, we had several different communities that we consulted with, and we wanted to find something that tied their stories together. And so we also did a tour of the Textiles Museum at the University of Alberta, and we were able to learn a lot about the textile history of all of these different cultures, and we found a lot of things in common, whether it was the techniques that they used to make their cloths, maybe the color palette, the shared history behind the garments themselves. All of these different elements kind of informed the artwork that we chose for this mural. And we met with the Filipino community, we met with the Sri Lankan community, we met with members of the Latin American community and the diaspora, and we also met with the Chinese community. And we learned a lot of different things during these community engagements. One of the things we did is ask a lot of questions about stories that were important to those communities. And for this particular mural, we tried to filter some of those stories through the language of textiles. So we asked people to find garments and textiles, pieces of clothing or cloth that were important to their story, their own personal story of their culture and their story in Edmonton too. And so those became the basis for this piece of art.
Yeah, so during the workshop, I had shared a Filipino outfit that had patterns, and it was a bright blue color, so it was nice and happy. But it was given to me by my friend, and she told me it's something that I can wear that signifies my Philippine heritage. And so that's something that I had worn in whenever I had to speak at some Filipino events, whether it was a Filipino fiesta or something like that, wherein we celebrated commemoration of some event in the Philippines. And so as a proud member of the Filipino community, I wore that blue dress whenever I spoke about Philippine experiences. And so that was a dress that I shared. It's right here, so I was really happy to see this. I think the patterns in the material just signified some of the patterns from the different indigenous tribes coming from the southern part of the Philippines.
A lot of the stories that we see painted are very much from the community itself, and part of that conversation of, really making more visible the diverse voices here in the city that we may not always get to, see on a mainstream platform. From what I know through, having a wedding myself that had Chinese influence in it, the dragon and the phoenix are like symbols of like coming together, love, and yeah, I believe Adrian kind of spoke about that, where like the phoenix is representative more the feminine side and the dragon is more the masculine side, and yeah, it's kind of like encompasses like symbols of that kind of very I guess that love between two, and yeah, in our wedding, I think you would see also some of those kind of images in some of the different textiles that we were wearing. We did have some aspect of our wedding that was dedicated to kind of paying tribute to our Chinese heritage. And so yeah, I know that specifically this type of textile was kind of inspired by one of our friends in the community, Catherine's wedding garment. And so yeah, so it's really exciting to see that it's being incorporated in this very diverse, textiles and symbols from our community.
My name is Wai-Ling-Lennon. I'm a member of the IEA Collective. And I know some of our members have led a tour around the Chinatown area in support of John Humphrey Center of Human Rights. And some of the members they cannot make it today, but I really like to come out and show my support. I love to see all the joint effort of different cultures, people from different parts of the world, and they have the opportunity to showcase their own history, their culture, but at the same time, we are going to blend in and we're going to learn from each other and respect each other and support each other to build Edmonton as a better place for everyone.
It's textile from Guatemala, and it's like now known as Central America, but before it was Mesoamerica, right? So the Mayan continent there, or the Mayan territory. So I think a lot of Central Americans and part of Mexico, we identify with that type of pattern.
Another textile that was taken and inspired from the Latin American community was this Guatemalan backloom poncho. And so this is a poncho that was woven using a technique on a backloom. And so it's made by hand, and you can see the characteristic bright colors and these long linear bands of color. And that's something that we saw quite a lot when we were looking at textiles from those communities. And so that's something that we really wanted to use in this mural as well. And so this is a Peruvian men's toque, and this is actually used to indicate marital status. You had the palm at the top, you can see the bright coloring at the bottom and the intricate detailing, the way it's woven together. We also have a Chilean arpillera here, and this is a type of textile that was used to tell stories. And one of the things I'm excited about with this mural is the opportunity to tell a story in augmented reality. So this is one of the scenes within this mural that's going to be animated using augmented reality. So we'll have some Cueca Sola dance that will occur in this arpillera scene. So another piece of the mural that was influenced by the Latin American community, we wanted to do something that represented the Mapuche people. They had like a long history of resisting colonization in Latin America. They were well known for their fighting abilities and for sticking together as a community. So we have this piece of poncho, and you can see that that band of color there, and that striping pattern was something that we saw that was brought to the community event, and so I took a photo of that and used that as a reference for this piece. That was directly inspired by that one piece of textile. Also, we have this Andean condor as represented graphically, and this is something that we found that was a historical reference. And from the trip to the University of Alberta Textiles Museum, we also saw this piece right here, and that's actually a very close-up detail of some weaving for a hat from Latin America as well. And so that section represents that community.
So the more colors in a batik, it's more expensive and intricate.
And intricate, okay.
Yeah. So that's what.
And is the images in this important? Is the elephant or
Yeah, the elephant is
special flower too?
Yeah.
With the Sri Lankan community, we worked with them directly did some community consultation, and we're really grateful to receive some contributions in the form of photos and images of textiles that we could use. And so it was textiles that were important to people. And one thing that we received multiple images of were batik fabrics. So batik is a certain process that you use to dye a fabric. It's a very layered and intricate and very creative and artistic way to dye a piece of fabric. So this is an example of one of the batiks that we received from the community. Also, elephants are an important symbol in Sri Lanka, and so that was one of the images we wanted to include. And so this pattern and this elephant was inspired by some contributions from the community. And then also up here at the top of the wall, you can see that large paisley drop. So that paisley print is common, and another batik fabric, a bright, bold one with these sort of roundel patterns. And so that's another example of the Sri Lankan community's textile inspiration.
And it's wonderful to see that a lot of the conversations that we had are being basically visualized, right? And so it's really great to kind of be part of that journey. And see it come alive. And so yeah, I think one of the hopes is, right now we're in Clareview. There are going to be a lot more LRT stations popping up, one specifically in Chinatown, and so hopefully this kind of continues, and we can do more murals in all parts of the LRT, and kind of dedicate some of the walls to many of the community stories that still have not yet come to light.